Silence had ruled Benjamin's life for too long, a wall no one could break. His grief, his illness, they had taken his voice. But then came Nina Moore, whose heart saw more than just a boy who had stopped speaking. She saw someone who needed connection, who needed to be heard. With each sign she learned, she brought more of the world back to him. What she didn't realize was that by reaching for Benjamin, she was reaching for a family she didn't know she was meant to save. If you are enjoying the story so far, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what city you are watching from. Now back to the story. The silence in the Harris family home was deafening. Benjamin, alone in his room, sat curled up on his bed, his tiny fingers curled in his lap. His eyes were vacant, staring blankly out of the large window in their Washington, D.C. townhouse. His mother's death had left a gaping hole in his world, and his diagnosis of cancer had turned his silence into an unbreakable shield. His father, Richard Harris, a tech billionaire who spent his days focused on business deals and corporate expansions, had tried everything to fix his son. But nothing seemed to reach Benjamin. The doctors, the therapies, the experts, they all failed to crack the silence that surrounded him. Then there was Nina Moore, a new hire, hired to clean the large home and make sure the place was running smoothly. But Nina didn't just arrive with a mop and broom, she arrived with a plan. She didn't know how to sign, but she made the decision to learn. At night, after finishing her work, she would study the alphabet, slowly but steadily, until she could form simple words and gestures. She wasn't just learning a language, she was learning how to break through Benjamin's silence. To reach the boy who had closed himself off from the world, from his grief, and from his own father. One day, she walked into Benjamin's room and sat beside him, signing hello. She didn't know what to expect. She didn't know if he would respond. But when his fingers twitched ever so slightly, she knew something had shifted. That was the moment everything changed. Nina Moore stood outside the Georgetown townhouse, gripping her worn duffel bag. The brick facade screamed old money, something her small Virginia town never had. Inside, Richard Harris offered a tired smile. Benjamin's upstairs. He doesn't talk much. Nina nodded, understanding more than he knew. She found the boy at his window, shoulders hunched, fingers tracing silent patterns on the glass. When he turned, his eyes held the same hollow grief she'd seen in her own mirror after losing her sister. "Hi, Benjamin," she signed slowly, fumbling but earnest. His eyes widened. For one breathless second, something flickered behind that wall. Then he looked away. Days blurred together. Benjamin stayed at that window like a ghost haunting his own life. Nina watched him during her rounds, dusting shelves, folding laundry, always hoping for something. Anything. But the kid was stone. That night, hunched over her phone in her tiny basement room, Nina replayed sign language tutorials until her fingers cramped. "Hello. How are you? I see you." The next morning, she signed good morning while vacuuming near him. Nothing. She tried again at lunch. Hungry. Benjamin's jaw tightened, barely noticeable, but it was there. By week's end, Nina signed "You're not alone" as she passed his doorway. His hand twitched. Just once. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her fighting. 3 weeks in, Nina made her decision. Benjamin sat slumped in his beanbag chair, his patchy scalp visible beneath the baseball cap he refused to remove. Chemo had stolen more than his hair, it had stolen his fight. Nina walked in carrying clippers. No explanation. She just sat cross-legged on the floor facing him, plugged them in, and raised them to her own head. The buzzing filled the silence. Dark curls fell around her like rain. Benjamin's eyes lifted slowly, confusion breaking through the fog. She didn't look away, just kept going until her scalp gleamed bare. When she finished, she signed one word, "Together." Benjamin's lip trembled. His hand moved toward his chest, then stopped. But something had cracked. She could feel it. The room held its breath. Nina sat there, bald and vulnerable, her eyes never leaving Benjamin's face. Then his hand lifted, shaking, unsure, and his fingers formed the sign. "Mom." The word hung in the air like shattered glass. His face crumpled, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. He signed it again, desperate now. "Mom. Mom. Mom." Nina's vision blurred, but she didn't move. Didn't rush him. Just nodded slowly, her own hand rising to her heart. I know, she signed back. I know you miss her. Benjamin's shoulders shook with silent sobs, the first sound of grief he'd allowed himself since the funeral. Richard stood frozen in the doorway, witnessing his son finally break open. Richard stood in the hallway shadows, watching through the cracked door. Nina sat beside Benjamin on the floor, signing slowly. His son, his unreachable, broken son, was signing back. Actually communicating. Laughing silently at something she'd said. When was the last time Benjamin had laughed? Richard's chest tightened. He'd hired doctors, specialists, therapists. Threw money at the problem like it was another merger to close. But this woman from some nowhere Virginia town had done what his fortune couldn't. She'd reached him. Jealousy twisted in his gut, bitter and sharp. That should be me in there. But it wasn't. And maybe it never could be. Benjamin looked happy. Actually happy. Richard turned away, his reflection catching in the hallway mirror, a stranger in an expensive suit who'd forgotten how to be a father. 2 months later, everything looked different. Benjamin ate breakfast at the table now. Actually ate, not just pushed food around. He'd started sketching again, showing Nina his drawings of superheroes and spaceships. Small things. Normal kid things. Richard caught himself smiling at the sound of Benjamin's silent laughter from the living room. Nina had taught him the sign for silly, and Benjamin used it constantly, his thin shoulders shaking with joy. Mr. Harris. Nina appeared in the kitchen doorway, flour dusting her shirt. Benjamin wants to know if you'll play cards with us tonight. Richard's throat tightened. Benjamin wanted him there. Yeah, he managed. I'd like that. Nina smiled, warm, genuine, and something shifted in Richard's chest. She wasn't just the housekeeper anymore. She was family. Richard found Nina folding laundry in the basement that night, her bald head catching the dim light. Can we talk? She looked up, concerned. Is Benjamin okay? He's perfect. Because of you. Richard's voice cracked. I've been thinking, what you've done for him for us, he stopped, gathering courage he didn't know he had. I can't pay you enough for that. Money doesn't cover what you've given back to my son. Nina set down the shirt. Mr. Harris. Richard. Please. He exhaled slowly. Stay. Not as an employee. As family. Benjamin needs you. I need you here. The words felt foreign, terrifying, real. Nina's eyes shimmered. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. Okay. I'll stay. Richard felt something he hadn't in years, hope. Spring arrived in Georgetown with cherry blossoms and second chances. Benjamin's hair grew back in soft tufts. So did Nina's. They compared lengths every morning, laughing silently at their matching buzz cuts. Saturday afternoon, Richard spread a blanket in Rock Creek Park. Benjamin sat between them, sketching the trees while Nina packed sandwiches and Richard attempted, badly, to sign Beautiful Day. Benjamin corrected him, grinning, then signed something to Nina. What did he say? Richard asked. Nina's voice softened. He said, we're a real family now. Richard looked at his son, then at Nina, this woman who'd walked into their broken home and somehow made it whole again. Yeah, he whispered. We are. Benjamin leaned against Nina's shoulder, and she rested her head on Richard's. 3 people. 3 broken pieces. Finally fitting together. What will you rate this story from 0 to 10? And what part of the world are you watching from? Comment your country below. Let's build a global community rooted in kindness and second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Your support brings us closer to our 1K subscriber milestone and inspires us to keep creating more emotional stories of resilience, healing, and Black excellence. Thank you for being part of our journey. Your presence matters more than you know.